The spring twilight in Boston was wrapped in a gentle light. Caroline Morrison gazed out the window of the high-rise office building as she placed her final signature on the documents for the large real estate deal that had closed today. In her fingers, she held a gold pen she had received at her college reunion. "Congratulations, Caroline. This makes you the top salesperson of the year," her colleague Janet said with a smile. Caroline nodded, looking slightly embarrassed. She had made a name for herself as one of Boston's most successful real estate agents. She had built this position step by step, entirely through her own efforts. "Thank you. It's all thanks to the team," Caroline responded modestly, but inside she was savoring a great sense of accomplishment. Her cell phone rang, and when she looked at the screen, her expression clouded for a moment. It was a call from her mother. "Hello, Mom. Did you receive Vanessa's wedding invitation?" "I haven't gotten your response yet." Martha Morrison's voice contained her usual sense of urgency. Caroline held back a sigh. "Yes, I received it. I was planning to respond tomorrow." After a brief silence on the other end, Martha lowered her voice and said, "Try not to stand out too much, dear. It's Vanessa's special day." These words caused a small pain in Caroline's chest. She should have been used to such comments by now. Since childhood, her parents' affection had always been directed toward her younger sister Vanessa. Vanessa was treated as the special child, allowed to do anything, and raised with indulgence. Meanwhile, Caroline was regarded as the irresponsible one, forced to be independent and expected to meet her parents' expectations. "I understand, Mom," Caroline replied matter-of-factly. "Don't worry." After ending the call, Caroline stood by the window, watching as the city lights gradually began to come on. Her sister Vanessa had become engaged to Bradley Hampton, who came from a wealthy family. The Hampton family was well known in the New England area, having found success in real estate and investment banking. After college graduation, Caroline had left home to become independent and carved her own path in the real estate industry. Without any support from her parents, she had covered her tuition with scholarships and working night shifts as a waitress. After graduation, she continued to distinguish herself through her diligence. Meanwhile, Vanessa lived in a luxury apartment with her parents' support, drifting between fashion-related jobs, and enjoying a carefree lifestyle she called her journey to find herself. On Caroline's desk lay an invitation to Vanessa's engagement party from 2 months ago. Caroline recalled the event with a bitter smile. Vanessa had sent her an invitation but had deliberately given her the wrong time. When Caroline arrived an hour late, the speeches had already ended, and Vanessa had embarrassed her in front of everyone by saying, "My busy sister has finally joined us." "She's always like this," Caroline murmured quietly. Since childhood, Vanessa had been jealous of Caroline's successes and would speak ill of her in front of the family. Their parents would laugh it off as just her little sister being needy, but for Caroline, it always left a wound in her heart. She took Vanessa's wedding invitation out of her desk drawer and read it again. The letters danced in gold foil on high-quality ecru paper. The wedding was to be held at a historic mansion in the Boston suburbs. Her cell phone rang again. This time it was from her father, George. "You'll come to Vanessa's wedding, won't you?" George's voice contained his usual gentleness mixed with pleading. Caroline loved her father. He wasn't a bad person, but caught between his wife and younger daughter, he often ended up leaving Caroline behind. "Of course I'll come, Dad," Caroline answered. "It's Vanessa's special day." After ending the call, Caroline picked up her pen and checked "Will attend" on the response card of the invitation. Then she resolved to prepare the best gift possible. As a final expression of love for Vanessa. It was the seaside house they had dreamed of together as children. Caroline had purchased a small vacation home on the California coast with her first big deal. Now she thought it was time to give it to Vanessa and put an end to all the past hurts. "This will be my final gift," Caroline said quietly as she gazed out the window. At dusk, the Morrison family's suburban mansion was bathed in soft light. Caroline parked her car and took a deep breath. For the wedding rehearsal dinner, she was going to stay at her parents' house. From the trunk of her car, she took out an overnight bag and a gift box wrapped in blue paper. Inside the box were the keys and deed to the California beach house. When she opened the front door, the house was already bustling. The laughter and conversation of Vanessa's friends filled the air, and champagne glasses reflected the light. As Caroline walked down the hallway, she heard Vanessa's voice coming from the living room. "Yes, my sister has always been jealous of my marriage. She's single, you know. She just can't understand." Caroline stopped in her tracks. These words caused a tightness in her chest, but it was nothing new. She maintained a neutral expression and entered the living room. Vanessa was chatting with 5 close friends, glasses in hand. When she saw Caroline, she suddenly put on a smile. "Oh, Caroline. Perfect timing. I wanted everyone to meet you." Caroline smiled and introduced herself. Vanessa's friends looked her up and down and nodded politely. There was obvious curiosity in their eyes. Caroline knew that for a long time, Vanessa had portrayed her to others as a sister who was pathologically obsessed with work. "Caroline, have you met Bradley's parents yet?" "They're in the dining room," Vanessa said. There was a slight tension in her voice. "No, not yet," Caroline replied. "I'll say hello after I put my things in my room." As Caroline was about to go upstairs, her mother Martha stopped her. "Caroline, your room is ready. But it's the smaller guest room. We had to save the better rooms for Bradley's parents and relatives." "That's fine, Mom," Caroline smiled. "Anywhere is fine with me." When she entered the small guest room, she saw several photos of herself as a child displayed there. All of them showed her with a serious expression, holding school awards or championship trophies from speech contests. In contrast, the rest of the house was filled with smiling photos of Vanessa. Caroline placed her luggage on the bed and carefully laid out her dress. The deep navy silk dress she would wear tomorrow was specially designed to match her skin tone. Despite its understated design, it had an elegance that would highlight her mature beauty. When dinner time came, she went downstairs. About 20 people were seated at the large dining table, filled with laughter and the sound of clinking champagne glasses. Caroline's seat was prepared toward the end of the table. Across from her sat an older woman who appeared to be Bradley's aunt. Caroline Morrison, the woman smiled warmly. "I'm Eleanor Hampton, Bradley's aunt. I've heard a lot about you." "Really?" Caroline asked in surprise. "Yes, I hear you're quite well known in the real estate industry. Our family company has apparently done business with you on several properties." Caroline smiled. "Thank you. I've had the pleasure of working with Hampton Investments on several projects." As the conversation continued, Vanessa tapped her glass lightly to get everyone's attention. "Everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. Tomorrow, I will experience the best day of my life," she said, giving Bradley a loving look. "But tonight, let's share some memories from the past." Caroline tensed. When Vanessa started talking about memories, she was usually the target. "My sister, Caroline, has always been a role model for me," Vanessa said. Caroline looked up in surprise. However, her hope was quickly dashed by Vanessa's next words. "I've learned so much from her failures." Laughter rippled around the table. For example, in college, Caroline fell in love with a professor and made special efforts for credits. Vanessa laughed maliciously. But the professor was married. By the time Caroline found out, it was too late. The story was a complete fabrication. Caroline felt her face grow hot with anger and humiliation. Nevertheless, she maintained her smile and picked up her wine glass. "Vanessa, that's not true," she said quietly. "I was friends with that professor's wife." After a moment of silence, several people laughed, and the atmosphere eased slightly. Vanessa's face reddened a bit, but she quickly started another memory. Caroline silently continued her meal, maintaining her composure by thinking about the gift she would give tomorrow. After dinner, Caroline headed to the bathroom to be alone for a while. As she washed her hands in front of the mirror, she noticed tears in her eyes. The door opened, and Eleanor Hampton entered. "Are you all right?" Eleanor asked kindly. "Yes, thank you." Caroline quickly wiped away her tears. "Your sister, she's always trying to prove something, isn't she?" Eleanor said quietly. "There's some insecurity inside her." Caroline looked up in surprise. "Do you know something?" Eleanor gave a slight smile. "I'm just an old observer. But sometimes people attack what they fear most in themselves." She said nothing more and left the bathroom. Caroline pondered the meaning of Eleanor's words, curious. Late that night, when Caroline returned to her guest room, she found the seating chart for tomorrow's wedding placed on the bed. She looked at the chart with interest but couldn't find her name anywhere. Caroline sighed and put the seating chart on the bedside table. She didn't know what would happen tomorrow, but she carefully rewrapped the gift as a final expression of love for her sister. Inside the small blue box were the keys and deed to the beach house. Caroline gazed at them thoughtfully. She didn't expect this gift to change anything, but at least it would allow her to find closure within herself. This was meant to be her final kindness to Vanessa. She lay down on the bed, deciding to rest for tomorrow's wedding. The wedding day morning began with a clear blue sky. Caroline woke up early and carefully prepared herself in the light streaming through the window. The deep navy silk dress fit her perfectly, giving an understated yet elegant impression. She tied her hair in a simple yet elegant style and wore pearl earrings inherited from her grandmother. Downstairs, preparations were already bustling. As Caroline descended the stairs, her mother Martha looked up at her. "Caroline, you're already ready." "So early," Martha said. "Were you planning to go to the church with Vanessa?" "No, I'll go in my own car," Caroline smiled. "Vanessa will need her friends today." Martha's face showed relief. "Yes, that would be better. By the way, your dress, didn't you have something in a brighter color?" Caroline exhaled quietly. "This is my best one, Mom." Caroline picked up the blue gift box and greeted her father, George, who was dressed formally and looking somewhat nervous. "I hope it will be a good day," he said gently to his daughter. "Yes, it will," Caroline replied. From her father's subtle expression, she sensed that he too was aware of her relationship with Vanessa. Caroline drove to the venue in her own car. The wedding was to be held at an upscale resort in the suburbs. When she arrived at the venue, the parking lot was already filled with many cars. She carefully carried the gift box and headed to the reception. "Hello," Caroline smiled and said. "I'm Caroline Morrison, the bride's sister." The young woman at the reception looked at the list and then showed a confused expression. "Ms. Morrison." She checked the list several times. "Ah, here it is. Your seat is." She showed another confused expression and consulted quietly with another staff member. Caroline waited quietly. In her heart, she already anticipated what was coming. "I'm sorry, Ms. Morrison," the reception woman returned and said. "Your seat will be on the terrace. Please see this guide map." Looking at the guide map, Caroline's heart grew cold. Her seat was not in the main hall but at a small table on the terrace, and on the back side of the building near the garbage bins. "Thank you," Caroline said quietly, accepting the map. She walked to the designated place. Upon reaching the terrace, there was indeed a single small table with no one around. There was no name card on the table, nor any arrangement for a meal. Caroline stood there for a moment before quietly sitting down. As the ceremony began, music started playing. Caroline could see the ceremony through the glass windows of the terrace. The groom, Bradley, was already standing at the altar, and the guests were seated. Bradley was young and handsome, with a confident expression. Eventually, the melody of "Here Comes the Bride" began to play, and Vanessa entered, escorted by her father George. Her wedding dress was pure white, with a design that revealed much of her back. Her golden hair was visible shimmering beneath her veil. Sounds of admiration rose from the venue. Caroline quietly watched her sister's wedding through the window, still holding the blue gift box. During the ceremony, a single tear fell from her eye. She wasn't sure if it was a tear of sadness or release. After the ceremony ended, the reception began. In the main hall, voices of congratulations and laughter echoed, and the sound of champagne corks popping could be heard. Caroline remained alone on the terrace, watching people enjoying themselves through the window. At that moment, she noticed Vanessa looking out the window. Their gazes met for a brief moment. Vanessa showed a slightly surprised expression, then, as if making a decision, grabbed an expensive bottle of wine and walked toward the terrace. The terrace door opened, and Vanessa stood before Caroline in her beautiful wedding dress. "Sis, what are you doing in a place like this?" Vanessa asked with feigned kindness. "Congratulations, Vanessa," Caroline smiled. "It was a lovely wedding." "Thank you," Vanessa said and approached Caroline's table. "But why are you here?" "Everyone's enjoying themselves in the hall." "This is my seat," Caroline replied quietly. "But it's okay. I could see the ceremony fine from here." "Oh," Vanessa pretended to be surprised. "There must have been some mistake." "But..." She looked Caroline's dress up and down. "Isn't that dress a bit plain? The theme colors today are ivory and blue silver." Caroline said nothing. She knew. The dress code on Vanessa's invitation clearly stated, "Please avoid navy blue," and after seeing the dress Caroline was wearing last night, Vanessa was deliberately making negative comments. "And you really never change," Vanessa continued. "Always choosing a different path from everyone else. Bradley's parents were worried you might not come. They know your work is lifestyle." Caroline maintained her smile and replied, "I wanted to be here for your special day, Vanessa." "I see," Vanessa said, tilting her wine glass. Suddenly, she swirled the glass and spilled red wine on Caroline's dress. The dark purple liquid spread across the front of Caroline's dress. Caroline gasped and stood up. "Oh, I'm sorry. My hand slipped," Vanessa said insincerely. There was obvious malice shining in her eyes. "But that red really suits you." Caroline looked down at her dress. The wine stain had spread from her chest to her abdomen. She slowly raised her face and stared at her sister. A sneer played on Vanessa's face. Caroline took the blue gift box from her handbag. She quietly placed it on the table and stood up. "This is my gift to you, Vanessa," Caroline said calmly. "You can open it later." Vanessa looked at the box curiously. "What is this?" "Open it and see," Caroline said, preparing to leave the terrace. "You're not going to watch me open it?" Vanessa asked, sounding slightly anxious. She didn't seem to have expected Caroline to leave. "No, you should focus on entertaining your guests now," Caroline said as she was about to exit the terrace. "Wait, Caroline," Vanessa suddenly softened her voice. "That dress, maybe it can be cleaned. In the restroom." "It's fine," Caroline said without turning back. "I'm leaving now. I wish you happiness, Vanessa." Caroline left the terrace and headed toward the parking lot, planning to leave the venue quietly without being noticed by anyone. However, as she was walking to the parking lot, she heard a scream-like voice from behind. Turning around, she saw Vanessa running toward her, dragging her wedding dress, holding something in both hands. Her face was wet with tears, and her makeup was ruined. In her hands, she clutched the documents and keys that had been taken out of the blue box. "Caroline. Wait." Vanessa cried out, tears streaming down her face. Caroline stopped and slowly turned around. Vanessa's appearance was completely different from what she had imagined. The perfect wedding dress was dragged across the grass with its hem soiled, her carefully set hair was disheveled by the wind. In her hands were the deed and keys to the beach house, and her face was stained black with tears and smeared mascara. "Is this real?" Vanessa asked in a trembling voice. She held up the deed. "You're giving me a house?" Caroline answered quietly, "That's the seaside house we dreamed of together as children. I acquired it with my first big deal." "But why?" Vanessa said with a confused expression. "Why would you give something like this to me? After what I've done to you?" For the first time, Vanessa's voice contained genuine emotion. Surprise, confusion, and a hint of guilt were mixed together. "That's my final gift to you, Vanessa," Caroline said calmly. "To close the chapter on our relationship." "Close the chapter?" Vanessa's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "It's fine. I've given you what you wanted. This is the end." Caroline took out her car keys. "We have no relationship anymore." "Wait." Vanessa stepped forward and grabbed Caroline's arm. "Don't go. Everyone is watching. Bradley's family too." Caroline smiled coldly for the first time. "Is that your real concern? Appearances?" "No." Vanessa cried out. "You're my sister. It's my wedding day, and you're leaving like this." "You sat me next to the garbage bin, Vanessa," Caroline quietly pointed out. "And deliberately spilled wine on my dress. Is this your sisterly love?" Vanessa stood speechless. Something was forming on her face, gradually changing shape. The mask she had maintained for years was beginning to crumble. "Please," Vanessa said in a small voice. "I've always..." She stuttered. "Always what?" Caroline asked. "I've always wanted to be like you," Vanessa finally confessed. "Strong, independent, successful, respected by everyone." Caroline blinked in surprise. "What are you saying? Our parents have always doted on you." "But that's different," Vanessa shook her head. "They've treated me like a baby. Always needing help, unable to do anything on my own. Whereas you..." She looked up at the sky as if searching for words. "You've always moved forward on your own power. I was just the cute little sister, but you were Caroline Morrison, a respected businesswoman." Caroline felt bewildered by Vanessa's words. Her worldview shifted in an instant. "So you do this?" Caroline asked. "Hurt me, humiliate me?" "I..." Vanessa said, crying. "I didn't know how to get close to you. You seemed too perfect." "I'm far from perfect," Caroline said tiredly. "That's how you look to me," Vanessa said honestly. She continued while staring at the deed. "This house, do you remember when we dreamed of living there together someday?" Caroline smiled at the memory. "Yes. When we were 12 and 7, we drew our dream house on the beach." "You remembered that?" Vanessa's voice contained surprise. "The memory from when we were truly sisters for the last time." Silence spread between them. From a distance, wedding music was playing. Suddenly, Vanessa took both of Caroline's hands. "Please, just come back for today. We never have to see each other again after tomorrow. One last request." There was a genuine plea in her eyes. Caroline stared at her sister for a long time. Vanessa's soiled dress, ruined makeup, and the genuine regret in her eyes. "Why should I go back?" Caroline asked gently. "Because I'm your sister," Vanessa answered simply. "And I was wrong." After a long silence, Caroline slowly nodded. "All right. But just for today." Relief spread across Vanessa's face. "Thank you," she said quietly. The two began to walk back to the hotel in silence. Caroline was the first to speak. "Is your dress okay?" Vanessa looked down at the soiled hem of her wedding dress and smiled wryly. "I don't care anymore. What really matters isn't the dress." It was a small step, but Caroline could feel that something was beginning to change within her sister. When they returned to the hotel, Bradley's Aunt Eleanor was waiting for them in the lobby. Her wise eyes seemed to see through everything. "This way, ladies," Eleanor said quietly. She led them to a small preparation room. There, a cleaning set and a new dress were prepared. "Caroline, this dress should fit your size," Eleanor said. "And Vanessa, let's fix your makeup." Eleanor smiled at Caroline and said in a low voice, "You're a wonderful sister. And your sister is beginning to change." While Caroline was changing, Eleanor was helping Vanessa. She adjusted the dress to hide the stains and fixed her makeup. "We're ready," Eleanor finally said. "I've had a seat prepared for Caroline." The three returned to the main hall. Vanessa went back to Bradley and whispered something to him. Bradley looked at Caroline with a surprised expression, then gently nodded. Eleanor guided Caroline to a seat at the family table. It was a prestigious position, right next to the main guest seats. "Here you are," Eleanor offered Caroline a chair. "A place worthy of you." Caroline nodded with gratitude and took her seat. On the surface, Vanessa acted as if nothing had happened, but occasionally sent apologetic glances toward Caroline. As the party progressed, Caroline simply waited for time to pass, saying a true goodbye in her heart. Today would be the last day, as Vanessa had promised. However, she noticed a different feeling growing inside her. It wasn't anger or sadness, but a kind of release. "A toast," someone called out. "To the happiness of the bride and groom." Caroline raised her glass and smiled. She truly wished for her sister's happiness. That was her final gift. 3 months after the wedding, on an early summer afternoon, Caroline was in her office doing a final check on a new real estate contract. That day, she had completed a major project and had just told her team they could leave early. An envelope on her desk caught her eye. It was a letter with a California postmark that had arrived yesterday, but she had been too busy to open it. Caroline carefully cut the seal with a paper knife and took out the contents. Inside were a photograph and a long letter. The photo showed the California beach house, with a suntanned Vanessa sitting on the terrace. Her expression was completely different from the day of the wedding. It was softer, more peaceful, as if she were deep in thought. Caroline began to read the letter. "Dear Caroline, I've been staying at your beach house for these 3 months. Bradley is busy with work, and I came here alone. Every day, I listen to the sound of the waves and think about my past actions. Do you remember the dream house we drew on the beach as children? You always said, 'This house needs big windows to see the ocean.' And now, I'm writing this letter while looking at the ocean through those windows. I can't express in words how sorry I am for everything you've done for me and everything I've done to you. You learned to be strong on your own, while I became weak from being spoiled. But now, I want to change. On my wedding day, you gave me this house as your final gift. But could it be not truly the end, but a new beginning? I'm waiting for your answer. But I'll understand if there's no reply. With love, Vanessa." Caroline finished reading the letter and gazed out the window. She didn't write back. Instead, she immersed herself in work. However, Vanessa's words continued to linger in her heart. A month later, she received a call from her mother. "Caroline, I'm worried about Vanessa," Martha's voice sounded tired. "She's been staying at the California beach house all this time and seems to be depressed. She's starting to be ostracized by Bradley's family, and her marriage seems to be in crisis." Caroline listened in silence. "I understand that you can't forgive Vanessa," Martha continued. "But she truly regrets what she's done." After a long internal struggle, Caroline decided to visit the beach house. She got off the plane, drove a rental car along the coastline, and finally arrived at the beach house. When she opened the door, a disheveled Vanessa was sitting alone on the sofa. Her eyes were vacant, the former sparkle gone. "Caroline, you came," Vanessa stood up, looking as if she couldn't believe it. "Mom was worried," Caroline said. Her voice was meant to be cold, but somehow contained gentleness. That night, as they walked along the beach, they spoke honestly for the first time. About misunderstandings and wounds from childhood, about the complex emotions created by how their parents treated each of them differently. The road to complete reconciliation would be long. But that day, the two took a small step forward. Before Caroline left, she said to Vanessa, "This house belongs to both of us." It was the beginning of our dream. It was the start of a new chapter.